So, I'm thinking it was this last Sunday or Monday. I was watching a video by Kahmal. I'd mentioned him on this thing before. I wouldn't necessarily recommend his streams, but that's just because, like most streamers, he tends to cuss a lot, and it's not it's a little bit vulgar, and it's not like I have enough crap in my head already. Anyways, he had done a video about Candace Owens. And for the record, just to set the stage, I don't necessarily disagree with his characterization of Candace Owens. I think he's pretty correct in that. But maybe to set the stage, to set the context for why maybe people liked Candace Owens at the time, and some people might still like her. Now, for the record, actually, I did watch Candace Owens for a while. I stopped watching her before she went on this kind of crazy tangential arc, so I feel justified. But I think one of the reasons why people liked Candace Owens was that in the world back then, I'm sure that it was the loudest, dumbest minority of the lefties, but you go online and you see video after video of people saying, okay, the basic premise would have been, you suck because you're white. Your ancestors suck because they were racist. Your country and your history sucks because it's a white colonialist country in history. And so when someone comes along, even a consummate contrarian like Candace Owens, you can understand where it's like any port in a storm, right? So moving on from that, though, there's a couple of things I think that either need further fleshing out or that I think he might be wrong about. So he put up 4 images of people on the background behind him. One of them was of Charlie Kirk, the other was of Dennis Prager, and the other was of Michael Knowles, and then there was one last one of Ben Shapiro. So I don't actually know. No, wait a minute. I don't know if it was Michael Knowles. I think Michael Knowles was in a part of the video later. It was Tucker Carlson. What was it? Charlie Kirk, Dennis Prager, Ben Shapiro. For the record, I would not put Ben Shapiro in the same category as at least Tucker Carlson and Charlie Kirk. I don't necessarily know about Dennis Prager. But in my opinion, I'm not trying to glaze for him, but he seems generally like a pretty level-headed guy. Moving on from that. There was a part of the video where he had talked about slavery, and he had said something to the effect that America was one of the last countries to outlaw slavery. Generous interpretation, and I think what he probably meant was that America was one of the last countries in the Western world to outlaw slavery. I think quite a bit of the Asian world and Africa was still doing slavery afterwards. I think slavery was still around when they started doing imperialism quite a bit later, after the Atlantic slave trade had already ended. Apart from that, he had also mentioned that Cuba had been the first to outlaw slavery. And so I think there's an explanation of this that might not indicate a lack of moral fiber on the part of Americans, which I don't think is necessarily what he was implying. But I feel like the generous interpretation of it is that I think upwards of 92 to maybe 94% of the slaves that came to the Americas went to South America. The overwhelming majority of them went to South America, which confirms what we already knew, that the Spanish are in fact the real racists. But you get the point that countries like Cuba might have outlawed slavery first because it was more of an issue. They actually had more of the slaves there, and so they did it earlier on. Apart from that, what was the last thing? Oh, it had to do with Derek Chauvin. And for the record, I don't agree with Candace Owens' interpretation of this, and I don't actually know what Kamal's position on it is. I think Candace Owens would think that it's a fentanyl overdose, and people probably on the other extreme of this idea think that it was a malevolent murder on the part of Derek Chauvin. I think I would tend to be a little bit in the middle. So I read a CNN article, at least part of it, and it had to do with the idea that I think it was talking about the autopsy report, and it said, I think quite definitively, that George Floyd did in fact have a heart condition and a fentanyl addiction. Point being, he was not in great health, and those were contributing factors. So I would tend to put the murder of George Floyd more in the vein of like a negligent homicide rather than a malevolent murder. Still his fault, but maybe more of an accident that could have been easily avoided if he had been more responsible or handled the situation different. Anyways, I believe that's it. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please press the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment if you want to. I might try to find the title of the article and put it down in the description or link it or something. Anyways, bye.